I'm Olivia. I am a wildlife and travel photographer. My goal is to inspire people to give a shit.
I'm Pat. Spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. I have strong views on conservation and the U.S. Constitution.
We will discuss topics like yoga,
How to gut a deer and not fuck up your meat.
orgasmic meditation,
Full body orgasms.
life after divorce.
Life after death.
Why the fuck do we still use plastic bags?
Why can't everyone learn guitar in school?
What do you look for in the perfect photo?
What's in my food?
What's in my mouth?
We might also dabble in a little bit of motorcycles. That's right. She rides a Harley, bitches. While our upbringings drastically differed,
Our ability to communicate and be open-minded has allowed us to strengthen our relationship. So this podcast is here for you to broaden your horizons, possibly change your perspective on a topic. So we hope you enjoy listening to The Hunter and Hippie. Welcome to The Hunter and Hippie, Scott Jacobs.
Very pleased and honored to be here.
I'm excited to discuss the topics that we have for you because so many people know you in your art career, and a lot of people don't know how you became who you are as like the successful artist.
Yeah,
Like everyone,
don't know the behind the scenes, everything involved that brought you to where you're at today, aside from the art.
I've done a lot of things to be able to afford to paint full time,
yeah.
not just painting.
Sure.
Do you want to start with any of the ones? Because I obviously know you the best. So
Yeah. I mean, so for me growing up in Southern California, the signature was always something that I remembered on artwork throughout different Harley-Davidsons from the Antelope Valley to San Diego. With seeing your artwork and thinking, okay, maybe this guy did a couple paintings that were cool and this Harley bought them and used them in their showroom. But then you go, to Van Nuys, and then you go down to Burbank, and then you go down to Los Angeles, and then you hit San Diego and Huntington Beach. And it's like, why is this guy,
I was everywhere.
why is this one dude's painting in every Harley? And then it wasn't until I moved here in 2019 that I learned that you're the only licensed Harley-Davidson artist.
At the time, back in 93, I was the first artist in the world ever licensed by Harley-Davidson. I got their stamp of approval to be able to paint the motorcycles, and then companies would pay me royalties to use those on puzzles and plates and posters, limited edition prints and things that were sold all over the world. That's why you would have seen them at multiple dealers, because they would come to the dealer convention, and that's the opportunity for them to buy products.
Sure.
And my stuff appeared on a lot of things that were sold worldwide.
Yeah.
that's what I feel like the population knows you to be. You are the king of chrome. You are Harley's artist. And this episode, we want to touch base on, obviously, your successes as an artist. But it was actually Pat's idea. This topic was creating generational wealth. And I know, being your daughter, I know how many people I hear or I read comments on your Facebook fan page that people go, oh, it must be nice selling art for that much. They just assume that your wealth and your successes are solely from being Harley's artist. So we want to touch base on like going back in time to the mindsets you started creating and having for yourself in order to get out of a not so great childhood and persevere and just, make a name for yourself.
Well, I think back about how I got to where I am today, not only in my art career, but financially, with the investments that I have, the choices I've made over my life and with Mom. And I think that really successful people are the ones that really understand opportunity and act on it. Because there's so many people that are so nervous not to act on something. They don't want to take a chance. But I was always told early on that, like we were talking earlier, sometimes you just got to keep throwing shit against the wall, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And every failure I've had in my life, financially or personally, you learn something from it. Otherwise, if you don't learn something, it's going to just repeat itself,
Yeah.
But
that's definitely one mindset I have gained, and maybe it is from you, it's always, if something bad happens, I ask myself, like, what did I learn from this? How can I not let this scenario happen again?
Yeah, so it's not a total loss
Yeah. Yep.
because you learn something from
Yep.
it and you grow from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So any failures, there's always a silver lining of, hey, here's an opportunity to grow from it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And like my upbringing through military, it was no one ever fails. You just learn. And as long as you take your failure and use it as a lessons learned to move forward with, then you find a way through that issue in order to move into something more successful.
Well, it's all about your attitude, and how you react to those things happening in your life. Some people get super depressed and they, bury themselves under a rock. And then other people are, oh crap, I really messed up on that. But okay, I'm going to do it differently moving forward.
Right.
And it's part of your growth as a human, and the experiences that you have in your life. You have to learn from this stuff, whether it's positive or negative. I mean, your triumphs in life, you learn from those, of course, and you're really proud and happy with those. But the things that happen negatively, you have to learn from those as well, so that you know what not to do next time and how to, think differently about it, how to react differently about it. It's very important in the way we grow as humans.
I just saw a quote, and it said that leaders are always 2 steps ahead of something in their company. It was like during COVID when the town started to shut down and we were walking back to our cars and we're like, okay, what can we do? What can we do to still be relevant during this scary time for everyone? And that's when we did those online paint classes.
Yeah.
And just constantly being ahead of the curve and not wallowing in the scary. It's like, all right, you just got to accept what's going on and adapt and make it work. And I think a lot of people, like you said, they just get stuck and they might want to just be depressed. And it's okay to be depressed for maybe a couple hours or a day. Like, give yourself a day to have the feelings. But if you stay in that mindset, how do you expect to actually grow?
Well, there's a lot of people during COVID that hibernated,
Yes.
and that they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Where I think that you and Lex and I, we understood that was an opportunity to think outside the box, to try to stay relevant. So when we did those paint classes, I mean, look how many people followed us from all over the world. I mean, it was really cool. During COVID, I think it was your idea, right?
Yeah.
We did like these paint and sip classes like you would go and pay to do, but we were doing it online. And people were joining us. We told them our schedule when we were going to be there, and people had their wine. They would toast us and everything like that. And so Alexa and I would work on the same piece together, the same image, and everybody else, we would give them the image prior to the recording. And at the end, we would actually auction off what I did and what Alexa did. And the person that paid for them, that paid the most for them, we donated the money to the charity of their choice.
Oh, cool.
Which was just positive, so people coming on there and realizing that I can make a great donation to a local charity and get a Scott Jacobs original or Alexa Jacobs original. Mm-hmm. And then when COVID kind of, started going away and we started opening up again, we stopped doing it because I had to, get back to my normal hours at the studio. So many people were disappointed.
I know.
They would, if it was, I think it was Thursday evenings at 5:00 or something that we did it. People would, that was on their schedule. They're all set up. They got their wine, they got their drinks, and they're watching us and they're interacting with us. Olivia would sit there and read the comments to Alexa.
I was the techie, behind the camera.
Sure.
And I still, because I manage most of the social media, if it's a run-on sentence, it's Scott and his Siri.
and no what's the punctuation.
No punctuation, no line breaks, and a run-on sentence, that's Scott.
I was sending a text this morning and, I'm talking to my phone and Mom goes, "Oh, nice punctuation." I said, "I text the way I talk." Run-on sentences, sentences, no punctuation.
So I still see messages that people send privately. They're like, I just want to say how much I enjoyed the paint and sip classes and how it was kind of their survival. They said that was the only thing they looked forward to, because some of the big cities, like, we didn't experience it, but they literally couldn't leave their house. So they were in isolation.
Yep.
They said that this was what kept them optimistic for their boring week.
It
Which
was
is pretty
fun.
cool.
I mean, now you got all this fancy stuff. Maybe we should do it again once
Yeah,
or twice a month.
That's what I was going to suggest. Maybe do it once a month. For a while.
It was fun. We've always been a family, but we're very philanthropic, and we've given back to so many things over the years. Even when we used to go to schools, and we would talk about art in front of art classes and things like that. And we even the kids here in Spearfish,
Northern Hills Training Center.
Northern Hills Training Center, we would go there every single week and help these people paint and everything, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to get a good feeling about something that you can give to the community or to other people, the less fortunate. So
Yeah,
it's amazing.
and I think if you don't do that, you kind of miss out on feeling pure joy. If you're just always thinking about yourself, it's like me, me, me. But then if you're just take a couple hours like we did with the paint classes at Northern Hills, you just feel good. It's like a high,
Yep,
I just
exactly.
helped by photographing and you guys taught the classes, but just seeing everyone smiling and you guys were smiling, like it was just an uplifting atmosphere.
Yeah, for me, I rewind to episode 1 when we talk about I set up that nonprofit for veterans to have a place to, meet and gather and talk about their issues and their traumas, but amongst others who have them as well. And then, through that, I was able to gain a sense of like
Purpose?
Yeah, purpose.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's probably every one of us, I would think, you have different things you could give to your community and give to veterans and things like that, different from what Olivia and I could give to people.
Sure.
We all have something we can give back.
Yeah. Yeah, just, spending the time. The time is one thing we all can't trade. We're all living at the same time. As today's over. Like, time is the one thing that you can never get back. So if you're able to give your time, I think that's bigger than just throwing money at it.
100%. Yep.
It's so easy for people with money to write a check, be like, yep, I did my part. But could you actually go help that community and wash dishes for the homeless or help plant plants or pick up trash? I've done that a few times in the community. And time is the one thing that I think is the most impactful to give.
Yeah, I remember on that topic. I remember your episode on
Secret Millionaire.
Yeah, and you guys went out to Jersey and went through the rough hood, and it reminded me of back home because just Los Angeles is just the West Coast side of where you were at. But seeing that, it was like, oh man, that's awesome. Like you're connecting with people, you're helping them, even if you didn't give everybody money. You're assisting them just by caring and giving a shit.
Giving clothes.
One of the coolest things I've ever done. And you remember all those emails and stuff? Say out of 10,000 emails, 99% of them were amazing. Oh my God, we're so inspired. We want to go out and start volunteering now. You really inspired us. And then other ones were like, well, why didn't you give more than what you did? We gave away $250,000 on that show of our money. ABC didn't give us the money to give away. And it took 10 days of my time to do it. Olivia and Alexa interviewed for it. They picked Alexa because when ABC came back and said, who do you think would gain the most out of this experience? We're like, Alexa.
Well,
all of us picked Alexa.
She also, in the interview, I'm answering the questions all diplomatically. And the question that she answered, very honestly, the producer was like, so what do you think of homeless people? And she goes, they scare me. And me, I was like, I don't like to judge because I don't know their past, da-da-da. And so I guarantee she says that, they're like, she's the one.
Yeah.
She's the one.
She's the one for TV.
The people listening haven't seen it. You can Google Scott Jacobs on YouTube and then put Secret Millionaire, and the episode that we did with ABC, millions of people have seen it all over the world.
It's on our channel.
Yeah, it's on the channel. But it was just such an amazing thing. And when Alexa, I remember her saying that she was uncomfortable with homeless people, but when we were at the train station in Newark, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm trying to stay inside the building with police, and she goes, no, come on, Dad, let's go outside. I'm like, no, it's scary out there. And then we went out there, and it was just amazing. But you're waking people up that might be covered with a a blanket laying on top of a cardboard box. And you don't know if they have a weapon under there because they're trying to protect themselves. You don't know who you're waking up. You don't know if they're, crazy on drugs or whatever. And it was scary, but it was so freaking cool. And I would have done it numerous times again.
Yeah. For being afraid of homeless people and then her being like, come on, Dad, like, let's go outside. We got to help these people. And she's on her knee,
Yeah.
talking with these people. And she just stepped into this giving. She's such a giving person already, but like such a compassion that she showed for these people she didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the premiere episode because you guys,
Yeah.
you cried how many times?
Yeah, I cried a lot, but because it was genuine. The experience for me was genuine. Even though technically that's a reality show, all those people were not planted. That was all real. Everything that happened there, everything that Alexa and I said, the money that we gave away, that was all real.
Yeah, and I think they chose Newark because of your childhood.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey and didn't have the greatest memories of New Jersey. I grew up with 2 alcoholic parents. My dad was pretty verbally abusive and physically abusive to my mom. My brother Dallas kind of left the house as soon as he could right after high school because he wanted to get away from it. My younger brother became an alcoholic as well and really never did anything with his life.
Wasn't he like 12 or 13?
He was like 13 when he got caught like drinking out in the woods. And, my parents let him drop out after 10th grade. And then my brother became kind of a drinking buddy with my mom. They would have, alcohol delivered to the house. And then he never went back to school and he never recovered from that.
Yeah, he died a couple years ago.
Yeah, he just died a couple of years ago, at 60 years old. And, a troubled life. We lost our relationships. We didn't have anything in common. And being around him was just too depressing for me. We tried to help him over the years and it just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much positive things happening in my life. You kind of don't want to go down a road that is never going to be happy. So
Was there a defining moment in childhood that made you want to escape like Dallas did, but defining in the fact that you basically grew the balls to say, you know what, I'm out of here and I'm gonna be successful?
Well, his escape was to college.
Okay.
And then my parents told me that, I don't know why they told me, because I always worked hard. I had my own lawn cutting, service. When I was 12 years old, I would bring a lawnmower behind my bicycle. I worked part-time at a music store. I saved my money. I just loved accumulating money when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I had a toolbox, and on the top of the toolbox was all the change that I saved, and underneath was, the dollars and the fives and everything. And that was kind of like my bank. And then when I got to a certain point, I always wanted to have a certain amount in there, and I never went under that. Mm-hmm. And when I would get above that, then that was money I could spend. So I slowly started buying a drum set, one piece at a time, because I loved playing music. And I had this mindset, because my parents told me that I was not going to be successful, that my escape was to go to work. Mm-hmm. And so I got a job when I was 15 years old in a art gallery. And I mean, it's a long story, but I'll shorten it. A couple of years later, the people that owned it were 2 women. And the one woman, she married a very wealthy man. And the guy didn't want her to work anymore. So they put the art gallery up for sale. They didn't have any takers at the time. And just joking, I had $3,200. Now this is like 1977. Here I am. Let's see, how old would I be? About 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. I've got $3,200 saved. And think going back, I mean, what would the equivalent be today for an 18-year-old person having $3,200 saved? Maybe it's 20 grand today,
Sure.
Value wise.
Yeah.
And so I said, just jokingly to the owners, it's like, oh, I'll give you my $3,200. I'll take the gallery. And they're like, no. A couple of days later, the guy goes, we'll take your $3,200. You think you can handle the gallery? And I was like, well, I've been working here for a couple of years. And, I know a lot about it. And so now I have the gallery. Not realizing I gave him everything I had. I don't have the money to pay for the security deposit and the rent to take over the lease of the building.
Oh, okay.
So I asked my parents, I said, can you guys help me so I can keep the gallery open? And they said no. They didn't think I knew how to run a business. And maybe I really didn't, but I wanted to learn, and I wanted to work hard. I just didn't want to be home. I wanted to be gone all day. I wanted to be away from the house as much as possible because of what happened there.
Right.
And so what happened was I had to close the gallery down, but my 3,200 bought the inventory, all the frames, all the moldings, all the artwork, the tools, and I brought it to my parents' house.
And the clientele, right?
And the clientele, yeah. I got a mailing list, and then I went to my parents' house with it, and they let me put some of it in the garage and some of it in the basement. And then back then we had these coupons called Valpak. And I think they might still have them today, where you buy a zip code and you get 10,000 addresses that they will mail your coupon to. It might be an envelope that has 20 other coupons in it. And so I filled those out and I started mailing them out. And all of a sudden we got tons of people that wanted to come and get framing done and all that. And so they would come to my parents' house and I'd be on the dining room table picking out framing and art.
Yeah.
And after a short year, I had enough money to be able to go out and get a retail space. So I looked around downtown. This is in Westfield, New Jersey. So I found a beautiful building, second floor location, got my lease, opened up a gallery there. And it was successful from the day we opened because there wasn't really any other frame shops in that area. But I had kept in touch with everybody through Valpak. And then, we advertised we're opening up a, brick and mortar place. And it was just successful. That was in 1978, so I'm 20 years old at the time. And then in the next 2 years, I opened up 2 other locations, Summit, New Jersey and Warren, New Jersey. And they were just successful from day one. And then I started getting into my own art. And I'd tell you a quick story. When I met Mom back in the early 80s, I told her I used to paint. I used to be really into art. And she goes, well, let me see one of your pieces. And at the time, all I had was this one painting of a waterfall. I show it to her. I'm proud of it. She thought it was a sheepdog. So picture a waterfall, and you got the water coming over the top, and then there's a rock a little ways down. And so as the water comes over, it's hitting this rock, and then it's spreading out because it's getting wider because it's deflecting the water off of this rock.
Yeah.
She thought the rock was the nose, and then all the other white and everything coming down was just the hair, so sheepdog. So at that point, I should have probably given up art, according to Sharon. But I started bringing my art into the gallery, and it just started getting more and more popular. I started painting under a name called Esco Tite, which was basically Scott Esco Tite, but I put an E after the T's, with the little accent on the end. And the reason I did that was that when people came into my gallery, I got their honest opinion because everybody knew I was the owner there. So if you came in and I show you a painting that says Scott Jacobs at the bottom, you might be like, oh yeah, it's really nice, whether you like it or not, because you want to be nice. So I did this Esco Tite thing. I tried cubism, I tried abstract, I tried photorealism, I did pen and inks, I did portraits. And I was trying to find, if I was going to be an artist, what direction do I want to go? So the public made the most positive comments when I did photorealism. And so that's why I went down that route. I still do it today. Photorealism, which is, in my opinion, the most time-consuming art you can produce, but probably the type of imagery that's been around longer than anything. If you think about paintings from 500 years ago, there wasn't abstracts back then. There wasn't cubism. I mean,
there are people with their little carafes or their, what are they called?
It was all realism because the artists were trying to create a moment in time back then on canvas, like a photograph, because, photography didn't exist back then. And then when the camera came about, and then artists were like, oh, wow, they can capture this with a camera now. And so that's where that whole movement of cubism and all these different abstract and all those other things, happened, because the camera was basically taken over for so many artists out there, just like what happened digitally for illustrators that were doing, monthly illustrations for magazines or weekly illustrations. Digital took over. So all those artists, they don't even, if they weren't going digital, they weren't doing it anymore.
Yeah, adaptability, I think, is key.
Yeah, adaptability.
Definitely. Talking about adaptability, you found that photorealism was what people liked of yours.
Of what I was doing, yeah.
How, for what, 30 years, 40 years, however long it's been, how have you stayed relevant?
Well, that's the key. Just like a singer, a songwriter, how do you stay relevant as a singer-songwriter? You have to adapt over the years to new trends, new styles of music and things like that. So when I started back in the early 80s, when I was doing Escotite, I was doing mostly portrait pieces, stylized portraits. I did one for Kathy Ireland, Kim Alexis, Joan London from Good Morning America. I did Tia Carrere, a bunch of different supermodels and celebrities that were popular at the time. And then I also did one for Malcolm Forbes in front of his helicopter. I got to the point where the way to make money as an artist, if you don't sell your paintings each for $1 million, it's hard to make a lot of money as an artist unless you have other revenue streams, which would be, like puzzles and things like that, licensing the images.
Sure.
So the images that I was doing at the time, a portrait of Malcolm Forbes in front of his helicopter.
I don't
Probably
want that.
not. Yeah, you're not going to hang that on the wall back here. You're not going to have a puzzle of it. It's probably not going to appeal to too many people. And so I needed to do something that was going to touch more people. So I started doing cars. Huge market around the world, as you know. And then I'm on the phone with a guy that used to work for us a long time ago, Ron Koppel. He was an art broker for me that worked for another company that I bought a lot of art through for our gallery. And he goes, well, you're really into motorcycles. He goes, nobody's really doing Harleys. Why don't you maybe try Harleys? And so I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I started looking, and there had been some motorcycle paintings that I had found online in the past, some artists, but nobody did it as their job, like over and over again. There wasn't an artist in the world that was doing it at the time that I could find. So I did 2 paintings. I did one called Live to Ride, one called Fat Boy. And then I went to the New York Art Expo and I hung them on the wall, and I was working on 2 other paintings. I think you were laying on the floor when you were a baby because I had a display and I was painting. I was painting in the booth, and the reaction from the public was enormous. And then at the same time, the reaction from the Beanstalk Group, which is a licensing arm of Harley-Davidson, was immediate, basically tapping me on the shoulder saying, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm painting Harley-Davidsons. Well, you have a sign here that says next release, and to do products with our nomenclature and our, licensed names like the word Fat Boy, Live to Ride, and all that was all protected by Harley-Davidson.
Sure.
So they're telling me I can't do what I'm doing, and I'm loving it so far. I just started doing it maybe, 6 months ago, and they told me that I couldn't do it. I got a cease and desist in the mail, and I talked to some people in the know, and they said, well, no, as an original, an artist can paint anything they want. Like I could paint you. You can't keep me from doing a painting of you.
Right.
But if I want to do limited edition prints and products of you as with that painting, then I need your permission.
Sure.
So Harley told me all that. So I did another art expo in LA. I did it again. I kept going. And then they came to me again. But this time, the chairman of the board of Harley-Davidson was with them and said, is this the artist you've been talking about? And they're like, yeah, we'll take care of it, meaning we'll make sure he doesn't do it anymore. And Jeff Bluestein was the chairman of the board at the time. And he goes, this guy's stuff's really nice. Let's try to work something out. And so I talked to their lawyers, and they said that a licensing agreement is a really big document and that they don't want to redo these documents after each painting. They thought they need a license for this image, and now I do another one, they got to do it again. I was like, I want to do this on a continuing basis, actually build a fine art program for Harley-Davidson, because it didn't exist.
Right.
Because everything, if you went to the archives of Harley, all there was old photographs. There was nobody doing what I was doing. So over the years with Harley, and that was in 1993, I've painted all aspects: military bikes, police bikes, women on bikes, guys on bikes, children.
Yep.
Trying to build a fine art program that 100 years from now, if you're a puzzle company, you can go to the archives of Harley-Davidson and you can say, God, I love this piece, Catch of the Day, or Caught in a Daydream that Scott Jacobs did back in the 90s. And you could use that on another product. But we touched base a little bit on the money that you can make from your art through licensing. There's artists that I know, like Peter Max. Believe it or not, in 1 year, he broke the record for an artist. He made $1 billion in licensing fees.
Dude.
People like Thomas Kincaid were making $200 to $300 million a year licensing.
Wow.
Even though I might sell a painting for, $150,000, $200,000, the real money in art is if you're doing imagery that will be licensed, that's going to touch many more people in different applications, whether it's puzzles and beach towels and things like that. Collector plates.
Yeah.
1998, I get contacted by the Franklin Mint. They want me to do a series of plates. So I did 6 plates for them. The first plate sold 5.2 million plates worldwide.
Wasn't it like, didn't it break their record?
I broke the record of Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley plate through them was the record.
Yeah.
And then my first one, which was called Pumping Iron, 5.2 million plates.
Wow.
$29.99 in the TV Guide and in what they call the Parade magazine and the Sunday paper.
Yeah.
You could fill out the thing, mail it in, and $29.95.
Yeah.
When I did the plates, I thought, this would be cool. I'll get some plates, I'll have them to collect, and maybe I'll make some money. And then my first royalty check, I'm like, holy crap. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, it's mailbox money.
And that was before CVC or any QVC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did that. I had my own show on the Home Shopping Network. You remember that?
I remember the pants you were wearing.
I had these pants. I think they were up to my belly button. I had a little tiny thin belt, and I had a big baggy shirt that was probably
Very nice.
2 sizes
That's the
too
90s.
big.
Like
But
right now.
that,
You got to look like Aladdin.
Yeah, now that's
I went
the
I went
style.
down to Florida. I went to their headquarters. You walk in, and there's just desks everywhere. And then they have these little tiny little, like, what would you call it, places to film what they're selling.
Sure.
Mm,
Like just these little, like 8
Like
by
little
10
sets?
areas, little sets.
yeah.
And so I'm on there, and they're selling a couple of Harley pieces and then a couple of my Chevrolet pieces, my Corvette
Mhm.
pieces. And then they have a ticker. So I had a host, and I'm there, looking hot with my really cool pants on. I mean, I look back at those; they're really funny. But you have a ticker on a screen there, and the host has to sell a certain amount per minute. So you have like a green line. If you're in the red, that means you got to promote it more. You got to get your number up. And if you're above that and you're in the green, your segment will continue.
Huh.
Mhm.
We were so successful with the first show that I did that we were in the green the whole time, and we had maybe, I think it was 700 pieces that we brought to sell. They were sold out in 3 minutes,
Jeez.
which was crazy.
Yeah.
Only show I did, only did it once. And the reason why is because Harley-Davidson dealerships complained to corporate because they thought that if my art was going to be available on the Home Shopping Network, why would they carry it in their stores?
Sure.
Which I agreed with them 100%. Because Harley dealers need you to come in, and so you can buy a T-shirt. Maybe you'll pick up a coat or a pair of gloves or a new helmet, so that's why they stopped it.
Bummer.
But that was fun, though. That was fun.
So you were talking about your toolbox, and when it was above a threshold, you were able to spend that. So like when you're getting your royalty check from Franklin Mint, I'm sure that money was unexpected.
Yeah.
What did you do when you started making enough money to cover the mortgage, cover us, like your family? What did you start doing to diversify your portfolio and create wealth so that you are making money in your sleep?
Which is great, and just like royalties, and stocks going up and down and all that. Well, there was a guy named Billy Ard, A-R-D. He was a football player. He was on the New York Giants, and he had just retired. And he was a customer of ours at the gallery. He started working at one of the big broker places in Westville, New Jersey. He goes, "It seems like you're doing well with your business. I really would like to talk to you about maybe investing and really looking out for your future and building wealth."
Mhm.
And so I went down and met with him, and he taught me that there's a certain amount of money you have to decide. Maybe it's 10% of what you make a week. Maybe it's 20%, depending on how much you can afford. Maybe it's 5%. Maybe it's $100. He goes, you have to be disciplined and put that away every single week, no matter what. And then the money you have left over, pay your bills with, and if you've got extra, you go out to dinner and buy other things for yourself. He says, but you have to be a disciplined investor and stick to this. It has to be a lifestyle that you stick with your entire life.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that. He started getting me into stocks, and then, they start going up. I'm like, oh my God. So was that my money? I didn't really understand the whole stock market at the time. And so I've kept that mindset my entire investing life.
Mm-hmm.
And it all started with Billy Yard in Westfield, New Jersey. When Mom and I started getting more and more money to invest, we started with real estate. So I had my gallery upstairs, and the next thing I did, I moved to a bigger location, but
Is
I was
that the one I know?
It
The
was a
two-store?
bicycle shop. It was across the street from the one in Westfield, the old building.
Okay.
So, and then all of a sudden I'm in my gallery and I see these people going in and out of this old building across the street from where my gallery was. That was a house. It was a Victorian house. And so I call a broker and I said, what's going on across the street? And she goes, well, it's for sale. She goes, it's rated a B1 retail, which means you could put a lawyer's office in it, a doctor, a business. It could go retail. So I said, that building is retail? I said, I could buy that and I could put my gallery in there? And she said, yes. So I made an offer. It was $165,000.
That's a lot back then.
Yeah, this is like 1982 or 83. And so I bought the building, renovated the entire thing over the next year, came out beautiful, put my gallery in it. And second floor, Mom and I lived on the second floor. And then the third floor, I rented. So now I'm using my money to start building wealth because the buildings go up in value. I'm getting rent from the third floor. My gallery's on the first floor, so I'm not paying somebody else. I'm not giving my money to somebody else. So I started making money. That building, basically, after I finished it, was costing me nothing because the money I was paying to rent and the rental income I was getting from the third floor was covering everything, and I had a positive cash flow. So when I started building more money from that, I was like, I like this whole real estate thing. There was a building behind my gallery that came up for sale, and that was $116,000. Found out it was zoned P1, which means a doctor or lawyer or somebody could rent that. So I knew that that was a valuable building. Mom and I lived in that for about 10 years. And then I put it on the market and advertised that it was P1 retail. Got so many offers within the first day. We paid $116,000, and by the end of the second day, we had offers at $140,000, $150,000. I kept saying no, and then ended up selling it for $180,000.
In how long?
In 10 months.
10 months. I thought you said 10 years
10
that you
months.
were there. Wow.
And so that's it. What is that? 40% increase, 50% increase?
Less than a year. That's a good
I
investment.
paid $116,000. Now all of a sudden I've got $180,000 for it.
Did you fix it up at all? Or
Nothing.
Nothing.
Didn't have to do anything.
Huh.
We would keep our stuff in the garage for framing. We had our machines in there. And then somebody complained, I was running a business out of the house, so then we moved everything to the other building behind. So to walk to work, I would just walk through the backyard to our other building because when Mom and I moved into that, we actually rented out the second floor. So we had income from the second floor and the third floor, and we owned the main building, the whole building itself. And then what I did after that, because this whole thing with real estate was doing great for us, the building next to my gallery was a rundown piece of crap. It looked like crap. So I find out from the city there's a building maintenance code. So I call the city and I said, can I make a complaint about this building next door? And they're like, sure you can. And so I made a complaint and everything, and they were going to go after the people because the side of the building was all peeled paint. It looked like crap. They had cats. And they would walk out of their back door and they would dump the litter boxes. And so there was like a 5-6 foot pile, a massive pile of kitty litter with crap in it next to our gallery in the back. And when people parked, that's what they saw was a
smelled.
pile of that. And so I complained about all that. And then the guy that owned the building called me and said, I heard you made a complaint about our building. And I was like, well, yeah, it makes mine look terrible. I got this, not a new building, but a restored building. It looks beautiful. And he goes, well, why don't you just buy the building? I was like, well, what do you want for it? He goes, well, if you buy the one next door, you got to buy the one behind it, which was next to my other house. And then he goes, $300,000. I was like, $300,000 for both. That seemed like a lot of money because I had paid $165 for the one and $116 for the other.
How many years later was this?
This is maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And so I didn't have the money I didn't have the $300,000 to buy it. I had mortgages now on the 2 buildings.
Mhm.
I didn't think I could qualify for another one. The guy goes, if you give me 30% down, I'll take the mortgage back. You don't even have to give me a payment for a year. So I figured, okay, $90,000 I got to come up with. I didn't have enough cash flow at the time. This is back in, like 1983 or something.
Mm.
And so I called Rick Illian, a friend of mine. I said, Rick, do you want to be partners in 2 buildings with me? One's professional and one's retail. And I said, I need $45,000 from you and we'll be 50-50 partners. So he gives me a check, $45,000. I get $45,000 together. We give the guy the $90,000. We clean up the house. Before we even made our first payment to the guy, we sold the 2 buildings, fixed up and redone for almost $500,000. So we each made $100,000 in less than a year.
Right.
I mean, here I'm a young kid. I'm
You're
like
yes.
22, 23 years old.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden I get my $45,000 back. I get $100,000 profit. I've got my own building, my galleries in it. I got rental income coming in. I mean, it's like,
winning.
crap. What can I do next?
Yeah.
So real estate, as you know, Liv, has always been probably our number one thing that we've invested in. And that's what you're doing now,
that
too.
stuck with me when Sharon, you've said mom. So my mom's name is Sharon, for those that don't know.
Or Scott Jacobs' wife.
Yeah, or SW.
We call her SW.
Scott's wife. So Sharon, mom, when her dad died, 2019, I got inheritance because he had a shitty house in San Diego, but he was half a mile from the beach. So his lot sold for like a lot.
Yeah, $1 million something.
Yeah, 1.3 for a lot with a dumpy house from like the 70s. So
location.
So yeah, so I got inheritance, and as soon as I saw that money come in, I was like, real estate. So I immediately started shopping around in town for a small rental property. And the house I found was a duplex on a corner lot. It had basically for all the houses around it, it had a lot twice the size. So it was technically 2 lots. So if I wanted, I probably could section it off, sell the back lot, and have somebody build on it. I like the fact that it has, some grass.
nice
You know
yard.
me being the hippie. I'm like, I'd rather it be green space. And
For the bees.
to sequester carbon. Don't get me started. So I made an offer on this house, and this was in 2020. So I think everything was selling really quickly because South Dakota wasn't necessarily shut down like the rest of the country. So people were having cash offers, and I'm like, shit, I only have enough money for half of the cost of the house, what I was going to offer. And that's when mom was like, well, I'll be your mortgage with the money that she got. So we then had 50-50, kind of like partners, where then I was able to make a cash offer and they accepted mine. And then I had 2 tenants and it covered that mortgage. And then when I was going through my divorce and losing any help, it covered my house. So it covered 2 mortgages pretty much. And then when I sold my residential, my house, I put it up on the market and was like, let's just see if it sells. I'm willing to embrace this uncertainty, make money because the market was so good. This was 2022 that I sold it. And I ended up almost doubling my profits. And with some of that money, I moved into my rental. I fixed it up, probably put way too much money into it. And now it's rewired. The electric is completely separate. It used to be a tangled mess before. And now I have increased the rent for both units. And once again, it's covering that mortgage and this mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I definitely learned from you.
So you're creating generational wealth.
Hell yeah. And
we're passing it down. Mom and I are good examples, huh?
I feel like I was like a sponge with this stuff because when I was like 13, I remember being barely a teenager and you being like, put money aside. And I would save money and then buy myself like my first iPod. And then started to save up more and more money. And now I just have an automatic transfer from my checking account goes into savings every week. Like what you were saying, Ard.
Yeah.
What's his name? Something Ard.
Billiard.
Billiard. So thank you, Billy, because I've
Defensive
been
end.
doing that, and that's been going into savings, and I don't touch it. And there's been plenty of times I had the water heater break in my residential right when I was going through divorce, and a week later the water heater in my rental went out. So both burst. I got flooding, and that was my oh shit money. Like I used all that money
you
that
need
I
that
didn't know
too, yeah,
about.
yeah.
So yeah, so if you're able to, like you said, to just put a little bit aside every week that it's
And
like,
forget about it.
yep, exactly.
Unless there's something that's you have to have money for, maybe it's a health issue or something,
Mhm.
you know, where you have no other place to pull the money from.
Yeah.
You should try to forget about it.
Yep.
Because it accumulates so quick.
It does. Like there's
you know?
times
Just
where
forget about it.
I look at it and I'm like, oh, I just used a few $1,000s for property taxes, and there it is again.
And the automatic thing, like you're saying, where you pull it automatically out. So you're not physically writing a check. So you're not even thinking about it. You're not even thinking about, because when you're writing a check, you're like, oh, can I really afford this?
Right.
But if it's coming out automatically, it's not in front of your face, you're like,
don't have it.
It becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like
You
a
know?
personal allotment.
Yeah, and like don't take money out of the ATM and put it aside. I do that, and that's my fun money.
Yeah.
So if I have extra money, I'll pull it out and, stash it somewhere so that if I go to Europe with you guys or whatever, I'm able to pull from that rather than pull from my checking.
Yeah.
It's wild how real estate does that. And it creates passive income, but it also increases in value on its own.
Mhm.
Like you said,
Yeah.
that building you made $80,000 by doing nothing. I remember growing up as a kid, not for very long, but I remember living in a travel trailer on a canyon road in Kern County.
Mhm.
And we got out of that. My dad bought a house. He put a little sweat equity into it, put on a new roof, changed the plumbing and things like that. And then within a couple of years, we were moving, and I didn't understand it. And I just knew we were moving,
Mhm.
2 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old. And then we really didn't stay in one place until I was in middle school. And I started to realize why we were moving all these times. And my dad was just making money on every house that he would buy.
Yeah.
He'd buy a house, he'd make 80 grand, he'd go buy another house, make another 80 grand.
Yep.
And now it's part of the reason we left California, but the capital gains,
Mm.
now it slows your opportunity quite a bit, because in California, I haven't even checked South Dakota, but in California, and I was subjected to it as well before moving out here when I sold my house. But if you don't live in the home for 24
Mm.
months, then you have to pay capital gains. And California's capital gains is 60%.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's one of the
So-
reasons we got out of California too. When we moved there in like 95,
Yeah.
we moved to a town called Rancho Santa Fe,
Mhm.
which at the time, and it's one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States, still is.
Mhm.
It was all about location, location, location. So I looked with some realtors. Sharon was in New Jersey at the time when I picked the house. She hadn't even seen the house.
You also have to give the background where you had already sold the house in New Jersey, and we didn't know where we were moving. We didn't know which state we were moving.
We rented a house. We rented a house. We didn't know where we were going, true. But we had come out to visit Sharon's dad, John, and he lived in Solana Beach. And we went for lunch in Rancho Santa Fe, which what we loved about Rancho Santa Fe, because so much of California, as you know, from living there, it's just like one town to the next. You don't even know where one ends and one begins, because it's like a strip mall
Suburban
on one
sprawl.
road. It's never ending. You don't know where the borders are.
Mhm.
But in New Jersey, like in Westfield, Cranford, all these, the beautiful little communities, they have a downtown area.
Mhm.
And what attracted us to Rancho Santa Fe is they had a village in the middle, little tiny town, and a little grocery store. You had to go there to get your mail and everything. That reminded us of New Jersey. So we could get our little piece of New Jersey in California. And so we decided that if we were going to move there, we wanted to go to Rancho Santa Fe. So we rented a house in Rancho for 2 years, a little house. It was beautiful at the end of a cul-de-sac, a pool and everything. And we want to make sure we liked it first. And then when I started looking, I looked in Rancho Santa Fe only. And back then in 90s, you could pay $1 million, $1.5 million for a 3,000 square foot house no heat, no insulation, 2x4s for your beams at the top. It was unbelievable, incredibly expensive what you got. And then all of a sudden there was this one listing that was on 2.5 acres. It had about a 3,400 square foot house, had 4 garages, had a pool, had a tennis court, and it was listed at like $679,000. And so I said, I'm looking through all these listings, and I show it to our broker.
In the newspaper, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, can I look at this one? I said, look at the price on this one, $679,000. And she goes, oh, that's got to be wrong. It's probably $1,679,000. I said, can you check it out? Make a phone call?
Yeah.
And so she calls. Sure enough, $679,000. And so we go to look at it. It's a house that needs,
A lot.
it's got an old, ugly kitchen and cabinets and all
Popcorn
that.
ceilings, linoleum
Popcorn
flooring.
ceilings, linoleum flooring, all the ugly crap from
Sure.
the 50s or whatever. And so we go to look at it, and the potential was great on a cul-de-sac, quiet street in Rancho Santa Fe. And so Sharon's dad calls me, and he goes, what do you think of the house you looked at? And I was like, I really like it. I think I'm going to make an offer. He goes, if you love that house, it just came on the market. He goes, pay full price. He goes, even go over full price. And that wasn't common back then. $679,000, so offered $680,000, and she took it. And the reason that it was so low and she was trying to get rid of it is because her husband was an artist. He was a cartoon artist, had actually died on the road.
Oh.
And she wanted to downsize and get a condo. Her 2 daughters had already grown up, and they were already out of the house. It was just timing,
Mhm.
and like I was saying earlier, I think successful people understand opportunity and act on it.
Yep.
That was an opportunity for me. Okay, $680,000. I need to pull the trigger right now, or somebody's going to come in there and say, I'll give you 700 or give you $1 million for it.
Right.
And I'd lose the opportunity. You need to act on it. You need to understand when opportunities are in your lap and you have to act on them. Because so many people are like, oh, I got to think about it. And maybe that ship's already sailed by the time you think about it.
Yep.
You got to jump in sometimes with both feet. And then
Yeah.
I've done that a lot over the years. One of the things I was telling you the other day, Liv, one of the things that when we got to a certain amount of value in our stock portfolio, we had the opportunity to get into what they call hedge funds.
Mhm.
And hedge funds are really
Volatile.
dicey. They're
It's a gamble.
volatile. It's a gamble. It's a big gamble. And so we had to fill out paperwork saying that we agree that we could lose this amount of money. We understand we could lose 100% of it, because if it doesn't work out, you lose all the money.
Mhm.
You don't lose half of it. You lose all of it. And so it was a $250,000 buy-in at the time. And it was a 6-month commitment. I went in there, Bruce Morley, talked me into going into it. And he told me, he goes, these guys that manage these hedge funds have been great track record. Went in, we made, I can't even remember the exact amount, but like $1 million in 6 months on $250,000 investment. But you have to have, the balls to be able to lose the $250,000.
Right.
And I was in my stride. I was making good money. We already had other money invested to fall back on. It wasn't going to change our lifestyle in any way if we lost the $250,000. Huge payoff.
I think that's a
for
big
us.
difference too. If you're able to lose it, like you
Yeah.
said, you have backup, especially when you have a family. You can't be like, I just put the value of our house and I risked it all, and now you lost your house and you lost everything. That's not the same thing as what
It's
you're
no,
saying.
no.
It's not going to ruin your life.
We already had a nest egg. It wasn't going to affect our home, our mortgage, or anything. We already had money saved, and this was just a percentage of what we already had saved. Mom has never second-guessed me on our investments as far as stocks or hedge funds or anything like that. I've controlled that ever since we've been together, and we've built a pretty significant portfolio.
I was going to ask, like, what is your net worth? Do you know? Like with everything?
Tens of millions. I don't even know.
I think Google said you were worth 80 million.
Well, if you think about all the real estate we have,
Yep.
we've got a pretty significant portfolio, and then I own the rights to everything I've ever painted.
Hmm.
Hundreds and hundreds of images that are licensed, and you can license to companies in perpetuity.
Yeah, we
You
get
know?
those often. Hey, I want to use your image. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
Here's the licensing agreement. And they're like, oh, it's like, what? You think you can just use our image without,
Yeah, I won't say who it is, but we tried to use a song for our podcast, and they wanted $5,000.
No, only $500. And I wrote back in the email because they said normally it's $1,500, but for you, it's $500. When I wrote them an email back, I said, that's okay. I said, I don't expect it for free. I understand licensing. Like, this is your song.
Yeah.
I said, but maybe in the future you become a listener and your sponsorship is us using the song. And that's just how I ended it. And I just like, thanks again. Just like, I completely understand. I don't expect it for free.
Is that person a listener now?
I don't know. Hey, guys, we like your song.
Yeah.
But you can't say who it is.
I guess we probably could, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the band is called Beartooth, and the
Nice.
song is called I Was Alive, and it talks about when I die, I hope that I lived. And it's a very positive song, uplifting for me. I listen to the lyrics and it just makes me feel good about living life to its fullest. Instead of
Sure.
like, I don't want to be scared like on my deathbed. Is that what he says?
Yeah, I don't want to be scared on my deathbed when I die.
I want to know I was alive.
I'll know that I was alive.
So like to live life. And he showed it to me. And all their other songs are like very us, like very screamo, emo, punk. And then this song is just, there's no screaming, but it's just uplifting. And so we thought it kind of just summarized us and yeah.
It reminds me a little of that Tim McGraw song, Live Like You're Dying.
Yeah.
You live like you're dying, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of going off topic a little bit, but
Yeah.
with the licensing, they're making money,
Yeah.
not even selling
Yeah.
a record.
Yeah.
They're just saying, "Hey, can we use 10 seconds of your song?" And they're like $500.
And that's
You know, it's
fine. I
like,
mean,
oh.
I had
You
somebody.
found the manager or something?
Yeah.
Or their
Just emailed them.
agent?
He did.
Email
yeah.
the agent.
Okay.
And
Cool.
and then for me, I know this, and I've been emailed about my blog and putting on links to, like, one was a European transit, like the Eurail. It wasn't Eurail, but it was like that. And it said, hey, this is what we offer. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to. And I said, for $100. Like, that was it. It wasn't that much.
Right.
But know your worth. Don't give your stuff away. That's huge. And people who have the more creative type of traits, I feel like so many people just go, it's not worth that. And they're like, yeah, just have it. But you need to put your foot down and be like, no, these are my prices, because how can you continue to be successful if you give away your stuff?
Mom does that to me all the time.
I know.
When I'm doing a show and I've got, I don't know, 10, 15 paintings going to Japan for a show. That's where we go next. And she'll go, no, that's not enough. No, your prices have gone up over the last 15 years. You can't give people prices that, and that's true. She's only looking out for us.
I say it to you. I'm like, Dad, you also have your shoulder replacements. You've had 2. Like
It's working great now.
The difficulty
Just
in
punch me?
painting,
Yeah.
you're not a young duck anymore. So standing,
No, I'm not.
Your time is worth more money now. Like
Well,
we can't do those paint classes because you're always out of the country.
Yeah,
I mean,
this year I told Mom I was going to cut back, on shows, and I did. I said no to 5 of them. But in May, I have that museum retrospective, which is a show.
Yeah, talk about that. What is that?
I can't wait. The Monthaven Museum outside of Nashville.
May 1st through the 4th?
Yeah, I think that Saturday night's the black tie. There's a sneak peek on the first Thursday, black tie event on the Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'm doing some kind of artist talk to a bunch of students.
I think it's a brunch.
Yeah.
I looked at the ticket information. It's pretty cool.
I'm excited. So we've been tracking down. They're doing supposedly a retrospective, 45, 50 paintings, which probably for me, I'll go in there and I'll probably get all teary-eyed because,
Oh, yeah.
I've been well, I'm a mushy guy, but I've been very, very fortunate with my career. But it's because of dedication. We talked earlier a little bit about reinventing yourself, trying to come up with new things, where I started with cars and motorcycles. Before that was portraits.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing wine pieces, which brought a whole new group of collectors to my work. And then after that, I started doing, like Patron and all these different, spirits and things, which brought more people to me. Then flowers and still lifes and all kinds of things. And then I started doing women in masks, and I've diversified the type of imagery that I've done over the years to attract more people.
Yeah,
Because
you
if
have to.
Well, you stick with one genre of music or one genre of art, your market is going to be consumed by the people that are into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even like my photography, I love nature and landscapes and capturing cool weather. And then the print that's selling like crazy at the gallery right now of mine is a snowy scene
And you never know.
of Deadwood.
Mhm.
And I photographed it, not thinking much of it, but that was diversifying because we can't keep it on the wall there.
It's funny because, I moved here in 2019, 2020, and I remember being downtown and I'd walk by the gallery and I'd see, all your great artwork in the window. And then just this, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago?
And then you saw Olivia in the window.
Right. a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he did the We the People.
Uh-huh.
And then I noticed a distinct change in people who walked by your window. Before it used to be like, oh, wow, this is really fine art. This is great. This guy must be amazing. And let's go in and check it out. And then you get the zombie walkers in Deadwood,
The drunks.
7, 8 o'clock, and the gallery's closed, but it's in the window and the light's on. And you see We the People and these Bush Light drinking rednecks are walking by and they're like, look at that, man. Hell yeah, brother. And they come in the next day and they want to check it out. And then it turns out they're not. They just wanted to party like a redneck. And, they come in and
Yeah.
they're like, I want that.
That piece sold incredibly well.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The piece before that I remember just people coming in from being in the window was the writings on the wall with the little boy on the bicycle.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite.
So many people came in because of that. And then it was We the People. And now it's Olivia's, winter scene of downtown Deadwood.
Let it snow.
And we never know, though. You never know. Did you think that the response to that piece would be so great?
Well, so when I was signing the back of one and Alexa was there and she saw what I wrote, I said, photograph downtown Deadwood, January 2023. She's like, you photographed it that long ago? I'm like, yeah, I didn't think anything of it. And when we were doing our meetings for the 2025 releases, I just threw it in my collection of, hey guys, what do you think? And everyone in the meeting was like, that one. I'm like, really? Like, I just threw it in. I actually might not have even put it in the folder. I was just going through my other thing and I clicked on it and they're like, what's that one? And I'm like, well, shit. Okay, let me open it. And they're like, yes. Sometimes you've done it where you love a piece and then you bring it up to all of us and we're like, meh. Or the opposite. You're like, yeah, I mean, it's great. And then we love it. I think to be open to criticism, opinions of others that matter, not everyone, being open to hearing what they think and having the ability to just accept what they say and not let it define your piece or your work, but be okay with somebody being like, yeah, I really don't like it.
Well, it's similar to investing. You're going out on a limb, you're taking a chance with something, and bringing something out as limited edition print is kind of like investing in something new. You're like, well, let's see if it works out. It might not. And bringing that piece out, I didn't think the reaction would be as strong as it is when we unveiled it that day. I mean, it's crazy. People are pulling it out of the window.
I know.
And you're selling like one every other day. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, when it's on the wall.
Yeah.
So Jackie was like, hey, so I had to, she kind of looked at me. She's like, so I ordered 2. She goes, and then we sold those 2. She goes, so now I ordered 4. And then she's like, and then I ordered, the other size and the big version I was expecting, because I think just the print is $950. And I'm already halfway through that. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you
nice.
got to sell them now. It's snowy outside now, but spring is like tomorrow,
Right.
or the next day.
Who
It is the
knows?
first day of spring.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to touch on, where you were talking about being relevant as an artist and how you stay relevant as an artist, reinventing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting conversation with Travis Tritt, the country singer. We're out riding motorcycles during the rally a couple years ago, and we're standing at Pactola Lake.
Mhm.
And he was talking about how our lives are so similar, where we have a product and we travel around promoting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the biggest difference between you and me, Travis, is that in between your concerts, you don't have to write new songs. And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, well, you could sing for the rest of your life, like my buddy Gary Puckett's doing at 82 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's singing songs that he did 60 years ago. As an artist, I have a show coming up in Japan. I need new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I need new stuff that's going to be relevant, that's going to hit with these collectors.
Yeah, yours is a product.
I can't just show up like these guys. Like Travis can go home and do whatever he wants all week and then show up and sing songs that he did 20 years ago.
Right.
Mm.
I can't.
Mhm.
in between these shows, I'm producing new product. When we unveil a show of mine or Alexa's or any artist, these things on the easels technically are our new songs.
Yeah.
And people are seeing or hearing these songs for the first time. We don't know if they're going to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
I could have a whole stage full of new art, and everyone could be as successful as Olivia's Deadwood snow scene, or nobody connects with any of them. And here, I think it's beautiful.
Mhm.
You know, it's a tough industry to be in, stay relevant.
The difference, as you were saying, those are your songs. Those people then take the song home and then you can't replay it.
Yeah.
Unless,
Exactly. So
Yeah,
I got to go write new songs.
Forget the lyrics.
Yeah.
unless you make prints. And that's another, like what you talked about, is reproducing the images.
Yeah.
But you don't do that with everything because then you flood your own market. Your resilience with real estate, with investing, is there like a mantra or something that you've told yourself that keeps you focused on like long term?
That keeps me focused on long term as far as investing and things like that?
Just
or?
like the whole, like, just being successful, like creating this generational wealth. Obviously, you've had failures.
Yep.
How did you keep going and not letting those failures, the big ones, how did you persevere?
Well, you know, like we talked about earlier, is, you know, you learn from your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I lost the most money on are things that Mom and I didn't have control over.
Mm.
Making investments with friends. Do not loan friends or family any money,
Or,
especially friends.
okay, but this is a big asterisk right there. You can loan them money, but you have to have a contract. You can't be
Contract,
like, oh,
collateral,
handshake,
maybe. Yeah.
As soon as people see any extra money, any wealth, it's like the people come out of the woodworks. Like when people win the lottery, don't tell your family because they're going to just be like, they just think they deserve some of it. But you can always loan money to friends as long as you have a contract and not just a handshake and I trust you, I love you, because it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. So don't do that. Anybody listening, it could be your mom. As long as you have something ironclad to enforce and be like, hey, I don't want to have to use this. Just always have that backup. It's like, hey, I don't want this investment to affect our relationship, and this is why we have the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to make an investment and things like that, make sure you do your due diligence and really get deep into the numbers and make sure that they're legitimate. And if you can do something, an investment on your own without anybody else investing it, I believe that is your best way to go, because you only got yourself to blame
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't make the right decisions in that.
Yeah.
Because you have control of it. You make all the decisions, whether they're good or bad. You want to do something different, you don't have to ask anybody.
Yeah.
When you have 12 people or 15 people as partners, you know, you got to run it up the flagpole, and you got some people say, nah, I mean, you got to do that whole, let's vote on it.
Well, and like you said, the opportunities, sometimes you have to act quickly. And if you
Yeah.
have that many partners and you're waiting for the response of everybody,
You
it
might
might
miss it.
take
You
so
might miss
long.
the opportunity or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I learned a lot. And then when we opened up our restaurant in town and our brewery and all that, that's just Mom and I 100%. We have zero partners on that. And the other thing I learned in retail and that project over there is that fortunately, Mom and I had the money to buy the buildings outright.
Mm-hmm.
Whether people think restaurants are making a fortune, they really don't. Our percentages are incredibly low. But I think because Mom and I invested in the buildings and renovated them, and we have zero debt there, I think that's the reason that thing works.
Yeah.
Is because even through the winter, we make enough money to keep the doors open. But if Mom and I had mortgages on that whole project, it might have been closed years ago.
Yeah.
Because the cash flow just isn't there. Mom and I recently bought a yacht, a beautiful yacht, because we could. Because I've worked my frickin' life, and you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to give you all the money? You might say, yeah, but but I mean, you got to enjoy your life. I mean, I have traveled around the world ever since she was a baby, trying to make other people happy, give them a moment with me. You know, maybe they're a collector, and you're doing all this for other people and for myself. It's my job and all that. But to get to the point where you're building this nest egg, this beautiful estate full of money, and then if you don't get to enjoy it while you're alive, what the hell did you do it for?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I say when you travel all the time. I'm like, Dad, you're almost 70 now, you know? You
Yeah,
got
66 right now. I'm closer to
70.
60 than I am 80.
Good one.
I have been so disciplined as an investor my entire life.
Yeah.
And I have put money aside, and when we've had big gains, I don't pull the money out and buy frivolous things. Like Apple stock, we bought back in like 97. It was like $12 a share.
Mm-hmm.
Every 1,000 shares that we bought back then is 25,200 shares. Each 1,000 is worth $5.5 million. And that's only because I never sold one share. I sat with it.
Yeah.
And, Mom always points out, she says, we haven't made the money because you haven't
say
sold it.
Right.
Yeah.
You only make the money when you sell it, you pay your capital gains, and whatever you have then you officially made the money.
Yeah, it would be like, oh, look, I made $1 million on this in the stocks. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I said,
Well,
you haven't sold it.
Exactly. I screwed up on Amazon probably back in, I think it was right before we moved, early 90s. It was like 20-something years ago. Amazon had got public.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
Amazon was doing okay, made some big gains on it. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to sell it because it's doing so well. And then I watched it go all the way down below where I paid for it.
Mhm.
I got greedy. I should have just left it.
Yeah.
Because stocks go up and down. You can't be emotional. If you don't need the money right now, you can be emotional.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, we can't lose it. We got to sell. You got to cut our losses. But if you have the money, and like I'm saying, if you put that money and that's your investment money and you don't really need it because you've got the money to get by, pay your mortgage, pay for food and all that, this is money that you can afford to lose.
Mhm.
So don't worry about it. Don't think about it. If the market, which is doing crappy right now, it's going down because of all the talk of the tariffs, and people get emotional about it,
Mhm.
and they think the worst things are going to happen. And so they're selling their stock, and they might be taking huge losses,
Mhm.
but maybe in 3 months, if you left it, it'd be at new highs.
Right.
You can't be emotional about this stuff. You got to just hold on to it and be patient.
Are you interested in Bitcoin?
I probably should have invested in Bitcoin because I know a lot of people have made millions and millions of dollars on Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and it just keeps breaking new records. And I don't know enough about it. Are you in Bitcoin?
No. Not
Okay.
anymore.
He
No.
had it.
You should have stuck.
I had it.
See, you got emotional.
Yeah.
You got rid of it because you got emotional.
Yeah, I bought it at $60 a share. I bought 10 shares, and then I sold it for $160 a share because I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Made that money.
And what would it be
Stupid.
today?
It's $93,000 a share.
So you fucked up.
Fucked up.
You got emotional
I
about
did.
it because there's a lot of people that want that quick adrenaline shot of making money.
Well, they want that real estate story that you said, like less than a year and you're making all this money with your purchases in New Jersey. But that doesn't happen all the time. And
And I
if it
mean-
does, great.
But you got to realize the opportunity.
Right.
The one thing that reminds me of it, like if you don't ask a question, what is that? How do you say it? Didn't Lori Puckett tell you?
Oh,
that-
yeah. Lori Puckett, Gary Puckett's wife, told me one day, she says, if you want 50% more out of life, all you have to do is ask for it, which is very true. The first time I tried it on Gary and Lori Puckett. I think it was the next day. Gary had got invited to play at Wembley in London,
Oh, sure.
play a concert.
Yeah.
And he had never played in London before or in England at all.
Really?
And so when I heard they were doing that and he accepted the concert, I said, can Sharon and I go? And she looks at me. I said, well, you told me if I want 50% more out of life, all you got to do is ask for it. And she said, yeah, I'm not afraid to ask people for things.
Mhm.
I collect guitars. I've asked tons of famous singers, hey, do you have a guitar? I collect guitars. I've had people hand me guitars on stage. I was with Marshall Tucker. The guy gives me a guitar. And at the end of the concert, he gives me his tambourine and signs it. I mean, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's okay.
Well, so the other mindset about asking no is just an answer. It's
Yeah.
not a rejection.
Mm-hmm.
It's just answering your question. It might not be the answer you like, but it's just an answer to the question that you asked. If you fight no, like the actual physical no, you're like, struggling, making these faces, and you're exerting so much energy to fight no. But if you just step aside and don't view it as this rejection, and you just go, oh, nope, like I'll just step to the side and just accept it and not like define it as you suck and
Mhm.
no, he doesn't want to spend time with me in London if they said no to you. Just view it as an answer. That's all it is.
Yeah, don't be
It's
so
hard.
emotional or
Yeah.
take it too personal. It's just an answer.
Emotion can mess with a lot of things if you do too
100%.
much.
Yep.
So a question that's popping in my head right now, going all the way back to your toolbox with your change and your loose bills on the bottom. If you had advice for somebody who's starting new and they didn't have the overhead to cover all these expenses and all these things, what would your advice be for taking the first step in successful business?
Well, come up with an idea. I mean, I was always told too, the businesses that you might want to start are businesses that don't necessarily exist in your community.
Mhm.
To try to bring something else that already exists and maybe try to just do it a little different. The odds of that being successful probably aren't as great as you bringing something to a community that
That's
doesn't
missing.
exist. I mean, look at the people that invented things, and it all started with an idea. The guy that got those burrs stuck in his socks and it turned into Velcro. But you never know. It could be an idea, but so many people don't have the balls to try to go out there and do it. Maybe invest in yourself.
My next question to piggyback off that, let's say somebody has a successful business. What are the first easiest steps to start creating generational wealth?
Invest in yourself. Make sure you put some money aside,
Mhm.
and see how it's going and know if it is not working to cut your losses.
Mhm.
Throw that shit up against the wall and it might stick. I mean, I did that. It was Frank Barone is the one that told me that one day. And the other thing that sticks with me, another saying, I don't know if it has anything to do with what we're talking about, is if money can fix it, it's not a problem. When I was 12 years old and I started making money, I liked having money. I didn't have to ask my parents for money. If I wanted to buy something, I could buy it. I made the decision. I didn't like being controlled by somebody else. And I've kept that. 50% more out of life, ask for it. If money can fix it, it's not a problem. Believe in yourself. Throw shit against the wall. Maybe it'll stick. Those are all things that I've learned in my life that I will never forget.
Yeah.
Because I think they're all important things, that have really brought me in the directions I've gone with my life.
Definitely. I think another one for me, it was probably from Tony Robbins, but your relationship with money plays a huge factor. I opened up my first credit card, not bank account, my first credit card when I was 16 because I wanted to start building my credit score. So I know that most teenagers aren't like that, but if you want to start creating wealth, you got to do it at a young age. And also the relationship that I have with money is it's just money. I always tell myself is it's always going to come back. Like when both the water heaters burst and I have the mitigator draining my basement and it's thousands of dollars. I'm like, you know what? This is going to come back quickly. And just like creating that and throwing it out there every time that something like that happens, like property taxes on both the houses are due next month. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to get that right back. And having that mindset, I think, creates it for your life. But if you have the, oh God, I'm so bad with money, you're just going to keep perpetuating that behavior.
Well, if that's your mindset, then you are. I
Yeah.
mean, I was always told too, you can always make more.
Yes.
Work harder, maybe take some overtime, do something else. I mean, how many people have you met in your lifetime that have 2 or 3 jobs?
Yeah.
Because they need more money.
I was looking at myself yesterday. I started interviews for hiring at the gallery. And then I started editing one of the podcasts. And then I was looking at photo research and historic archives for one of the hotels in Deadwood that I'm curating all the art for. And then I was like, oh God, I got to edit those photos for you. And this client's asking if I want to photograph his motorcycle during rally. Like if you have one avenue of income, one source of income, great, I guess. But if you want to be more aggressive with your investments and your future, you have to be creative and try different things because sometimes like if the market crashes and you lose all your money in this month period because the market's really low, if you only banked on that, like you might be really stressing because you're like, fuck, all my backup money's there, but you have all these houses. So if shit really hit the fan, you could probably sell a house, sell one of your vintage motorcycles.
I've diversified.
Yeah, you
know,
have to.
You have to diversify. Another saying, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you had all your investments in one stock and then that stock, something happens major to that company and it goes down, then you lose everything.
Yeah.
But like you say, we got real estate. We don't have income really, except for the buildings that we rent for the restaurant. We pay ourselves rent for that. That's how over the years we will get our investment back through rental income, which is great for cash flow. But we have stocks, we have motorcycles, we've bought a lot of things that are of value that we could sell quickly just so we could stay diversified.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a good friend of mine. Well, you know, Jason. And I sat down with him, and, you know, I have my standard career that's my shift work. And then in my time off, I was talking with him and I'm like, man, what can I do? You know, I've got these ideas, but I don't want to overdo it and then be dog ass tired. You know, what was the good balance for you? And he was the exact same background as me up until the current career. And he started laughing. He's like, brother, I had 4 jobs at once.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And so when he said that, I'm like, you know what? I could do this. And then that's why.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, that's why I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I went out and I opened the LLC and I'm like, all right, in my spare time, I'm going to do some different revenues. Let's do this.
So you're building wealth.
Trying.
It's nice not to have to stress about money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, a lot of relationships break up because of money issues.
Yep.
You know, and things like that. You know, that stress, if you don't have it, it feels great. Thank God Sharon and I have been wealthy since I was 20 years old. I haven't had to have an issue with money ever, you know.
Well, yeah, you were like 12 with your lawn cutting.
But I know how I got there. I know what it took.
Yeah.
Olivia knows. Olivia knows growing up how many times I was away.
And to be judged because you're my dad. And to still have people go, your dad just pays for your mortgage and pays for your life, right?
He pays for everything.
And it used to drive me more nuts because, like, in high school, doesn't your dad, like, own Harley-Davidson? Oh, did he not buy you your Mercedes? And I'm like, no, I wanted a Mini Cooper, asshole. Like, this is the car I wanted, and I put $4,000 towards it because I've never wanted to just be like, Dad, hand out. Like, I don't like that.
And there's lots of kids from wealthy families that are like that.
I know, and I grew up with them.
We don't pay for anything for you guys.
The first time that I was looking at it, because my ex-husband would make comments like, oh, well, you know, you have it easy. This is why you have money. And I sat down with it because I'm like, shit, like I started feeling really shitty. And I looked at what I had done. And I think I talked to you and you're like, no, like you had put money aside since I was a baby every birthday for the college account. And you said you can use this money to go to college, to do whatever, or you can go to community college, save some money, and then whatever you have left over, you can buy a house, you could, you know, start a business. And the first thing that I did, not only did I start having credit cards when I was a teenager, we went in, the 4 of us, on a condo. And they asked, are you open to us using this money that's in your account to buy a condo, fix it up, and see if it sells? And that thing sold. We made a lot of money off this thing.
We became partners and we split it evenly because they were utilizing the money that was supposed to be for their college, and then they decided not to use it, and it had been earmarked for them. Mom and I could have taken it back and say, okay, well, we're taking it back. It's our money. You know, another thing that somebody said the other day, it was a celebrity. I can't remember who it was. And they were talking about their kids and how their kids are so wealthy. And then the celebrity goes, we're millionaires. Our kids are not. You know, we're wealthy. Our kids are not. They're not giving their wealth while they're alive to the kid. Maybe they'll inherit it, but they need to make their own way. I mean, because it teaches people so much more.
Yeah.
I mean, like you doing, you know, multiple jobs and Olivia doing multiple things. That's a rarity with a lot of people nowadays.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Everybody, I don't want to work more than 30 hours. And they're never going to accumulate generational wealth if you don't get out there and go for that brass ring and work hard for it.
There's sacrifices, you know, like
Totally.
there are weekends now, like if I don't have my son and Pat's working, I will be on my computer. It's a beautiful day out. And I'm like, I should go out. Don't work yourself to the bone because that's how you think you gotta make money. Like, I think it's work smarter, not harder. So if
Another
I can,
great mantra.
yeah, and that's mine. That's my biggest one is work
Yep.
smarter, not harder. If it's, I got a lot of work to do, if I can leave my phone in the other room on do not disturb and I can set aside 1 hour of uninterrupted time, that 1 hour is equivalent sometimes to an entire day of distracted work.
Mhm.
So being
Yep.
able to set aside and dedicate 1 hour to something or 20 minutes, there's a productivity planner by Intelligent Change. The guy that started it, he had a tomato timer and he set it for 20-minute increments. And in those 20 minutes, his phone was on do not disturb. He sat and did his work. And as soon as the timer went off, he spent 5 minutes doing whatever the heck he wanted. He looked at his phone, he went outside, he rewarded himself with a 5 or even 10-minute long break. And what he noticed over that week or whatever he started doing this, he got so much done in half the time. So being able to
Yeah.
set aside dedicated work doesn't mean you have to work yourself to the bone. It means focus, stop fucking around.
I like that because 2 days ago, I put my phone in the studio on silent because I get text, I get distracted. And as an artist, I need to stay focused. You're doing a blend, you can't walk away from it because then you have to do it again.
Yeah.
But I like that idea. Maybe I need to put a timer on for 45 minutes and then every
Yep.
hour I take 15 minutes if I need to call somebody back. That's a good idea. I like
And
that.
I would just use my
Great idea.
phone. It was on do not disturb, but I had a 20-minute, and as soon as it went off, I had another one right below it that was 5 or 10-minute break. And when that would go off, I'd come back. But anyway, so yes, so work your ass off, but it doesn't mean you need to put in an 80-hour work week
Mhm.
unless you're working shift work and you have to be there.
Well, even when you have to be there, right? Like one of my collaterals is an instructor, but in my period of instruction, I'll give an hour to an hour and a half and then cut it. And we get a 10, 15-minute break and then you come back because if not,
Mhm.
you lose the audience,
Yep.
you lose the people you're talking to, retention goes out the window. And I find myself doing the same thing even in construction. I did a 126-inch long, 96-inch wide island in a house. There was a concrete countertop and I was prepping it and pouring it and framing it and boxing it in and sealing it and all these steps that have to go in the process and mixing it properly. And on each step of the way, on the way up to it, it was like, all right, I got past that. I got to take a fucking break. If I don't take a break, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's okay to take a break.
Mhm.
I feel like we've been raised as a culture to be so busy.
Mhm.
The word busy drives me nuts because to me, it is you're so busy you can't manage your day. Like it's so hectic
Mhm.
that you can't manage your time more wisely. Like busy has become this badge of honor. I want to be able to have an hour, 2 hours to play with my son at night and not be in my office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I look at it like, I don't care if I'm busy. I want to be productive. If I'm not
Yes.
producing something, then I'm not really busy.
This is going to be a long episode. Moonlight and Magnolias. I'm actually going to put the link for the ticket information because anybody can go.
Yes.
And it's in Nashville, Tennessee, which is kind of cool.
Mhm.
And it's like a exhibit just of your work. I don't know if you specified that. You said it's a retrospective.
They're trying to go all the way back to my early Harley career, so at least 30 years back. And they're going to have 45 to 50 paintings. And we've been
All
helping,
originals, right?
all originals. We've been
Yeah.
helping them try to pick out the most important pieces in my entire career. And so if they all show up there, oh my God, it's going to be overwhelming for me to
You're
see
gonna
them
cry.
all.
You're
have
gonna cry.
any, what is it? Escate? You said?
Escotite,
Is
yes.
it
There's two
Escotite?
Escotite paintings in there. It's called the Mont Haven, M-O-N-T Haven Museum in Hendersonville, right outside of Nashville.
And the event is called Moonlight and Magnolias.
Moonlight and Magnolias, yes.
Yeah, very cool. And in the show notes, we will include your website, YouTube, social media handles, and anybody listening. If you want my dad, Scott, to be back on and you have questions, please email us. The email will be in the show notes. And we appreciate any interactions that we do get. Even if you just leave a comment and let us know what you liked about it, that gives us an idea for future episodes. And subscribe, follow, rate the show. It's super easy. I didn't realize it was so easy to rate a show. It's like the 3 dots, and all you do is hit rate show, and then you give it 1 to 5 stars.
Subscribe.
Didn't I say that?
I'm subscribed. I'm
You're a
following.
subscriber?
I am.
Look at that $2.99 investment.
Oh, subscribe. No, he didn't subscribe.
Oh, I
You
didn't.
Yesterday we started it.
Yeah, it's a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, so I got to go spend $3.
$3.
$3
Unfollow.
$3 and you hear
Just
unedited.
kidding.
There's the free episodes, and then the subscription is the longer episodes. So
Oh,
this
okay.
full episode, some stuff will be cut out.
Yeah.
Like our first episode went from 50-minute long free one, and then when I went back to the subscription version, it was an hour 40-minute long. So
Oh, wow.
50
Yeah.
more minutes of us talking
Yeah.
and us crying and all that stuff. So it's kind of like just the perks of seeing the full episode, and then also when we get sponsors, not having ads, all of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was very honored to be here, like I said at the beginning.
And thank you for coming and
I
driving in our.
got to go get a haircut now.
Yeah, you do. Hippie.
She's been texting me. I guess I'm 40 minutes late. And I'm like, is it too late now? She goes, no, if you come right now.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you guys both. What the heck? I cut 13 inches
Oh,
off.
yeah, you're a hippie.
I cut all my hair off, and then you guys are growing out yours. What the heck?
Well, I'm trying to look like a captain. You know, I got a boat now. I got to look like a captain.
A pirate?
A pirate, yes.
Nice.
Mom wore a head thing, like
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
the other day. She's like, I look like I should be on that Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I look like Johnny Depp. I was like, no, you're much cuter than Johnny Depp.
Well, thank you again. And yeah, we might have you on in the future, especially if we get some questions.
Sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to.
We're going to have a guest on who's a motorcycle enthusiast, and I know he's going to ask me to ask you to list all your bikes.
So we got quite a few of them.
We got to have
Yeah.
you back on for other segments.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
like
Sounds
maybe the cannonball run and all that.
good. Yeah, that's fun. That'd be pretty cool to talk
No
about.
more talking. You got to go.
All right. I got to go get a haircut. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cut.